Hello, Slow Film Festival family. I'm the executive director, Sky McLennan,
And I'm the Associate Director, Grace Tucker.
and we're really excited to have you here. We have a special treat for you. Over the last several weeks, many of you have been enjoying our collaboration with Hotel San Luis Obispo's Ox and Anchor, celebrating the beloved cook, Julia Child, and the new documentary, Julia, currently playing at the Palm Theater in San Luis Obispo. We have with us today the two directors of Julia, Julie Cohen and Betsy West. How are you both doing today?
We're great.
Doing good.
Nice to talk to San Luis Obispo.
Yay.
I've been there, but it's been a long time.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so I guess just to start out, how did you guys kind of get started on this project? What initially brought you to this project and wanting to tell Julia's story? Just kind of give us a little lowdown on how it all came about.
Yeah, you know, if people in the audience saw RBG, our documentary about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, they know that we love telling the stories of groundbreaking, glass ceiling shattering, iconic American women. So we're always looking for those, and we considered really scores of them, and Julia's story just appealed to us because she really changed the world, but in a way that people don't think of her as someone who changed the world. Like, you don't think of Julia Child as a radical, and we love the idea of telling a story that was so deeply interwoven with food.
For sure.
That's awesome. That's great. And yeah, I know Julia didn't consider herself a feminist, but she kind of paved the way for women in the food industry. And can you speak a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I mean, Julia was absolutely a groundbreaking woman and a role model for so many women. First of all, women in television. Like, you know, back in the early 1960s, you did not see many women taking a lead role in television. I mean, mainly the women on TV were playing sort of sidekick roles, and they were often very young and pretty and perky and upbeat. And here is this middle-aged woman, you know, with a loud and kind of imposing presence, very tall and very knowledgeable, teaching people. And that was something new for television. So Julia is a groundbreaker for women in television, and then opened up so many opportunities for women in the culinary world. I think, you know, Julia reacted to the word feminist at a time when it really was the F word. You know, feminists had been demonized as women's libbers who hated men and had no sense of humor. And Julia loved men, and she had a great sense of humor. But, you know, I think that the portrayal of feminists was definitely a backlash to the success of the women's movement in some ways. And I think if Julia were around now, she might embrace the word feminist in the way so many women have.
Yeah, I completely agree. And just personally, I grew up watching her on TV and seeing her and just being totally herself and authentic.
Yeah, exactly.
Made me feel like, oh, maybe I could be up there like her and silly and making mistakes and everything. Like, she made it real and approachable, which I hadn't seen before until I came across her. So yeah.
I think a lot of viewers had the same reaction that you had and that we had, frankly, of like, oh, this is like a different way to be. She's really cool. She's not like, you know, I also grew up seeing the models who were in 17 magazine, like, and you're like, okay, that's not gonna really work for me. But, you know, you looked at Julia Child, who was always herself, who seemed like she was having such an amazing time all the time, and also who would make a mistake, as we show in the film, and kind of breeze past it and use it as a teachable moment. And, you know, it's like, it's not the end of the world. You're trying really hard to get everything perfect, but sometimes you don't get things perfect. Like, it's actually a lesson we all need to hear, but I think girls and women especially, like, sometimes you don't get it quite right, but you can still be amazing. And that was Julia.
There's been so many movies come out about Julia, and I feel like a lot of people just kind of feel like they know her. So in your guys' research and discovery just of this, of making this movie, what was something that surprised you guys about her that maybe everyone didn't know or that was just new to you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think like many people, I had a somewhat superficial idea of Julia before really digging into the movie. I didn't really understand what it took for Julia Child to become such an expert cook. And I also didn't understand that Julia didn't find her passion until she was almost 40 years old. I mean, and of course didn't go on television until she was in her 50s, after spending 12 really intense years delving into the cooking world, learning how to become such an expert in this world. So that was one surprise. I think some of the social issues that Julia got involved in later on in life were a surprise to us. I didn't know what a fervent advocate for reproductive rights and Planned Parenthood Julia was, and how unusual that was for a celebrity in those days. I mean, now celebrities speak out on political issues much more frequently. Back in the 1980s, when Julia was doing benefits for Planned Parenthood, that was somewhat controversial, especially with Julia's very, widespread mainstream audience. And, she just put herself on the line. And similarly, I didn't know the whole story of Julia's transformation in her thinking about the gay community, which, surprised us and actually, we found pretty moving.
Yeah. And she was there was a lot in the film that, I also didn't know about her. It was really interesting to hear all of her journey that she also went through. I was one of the things I really loved about the film and why we wanted to do the pairing with food is that the film really makes you hungry. The way that Julia talks about food and the way that you have beautifully shot some of these dishes that she was very well known for. Can you talk a little bit about how you stylistically integrated that in the film and how you worked with that?
Yeah, well, we knew kind of from taking on this project that we really wanted the food to be a huge part of it. Like, part of what's so amazing about Julia isn't just her biography, but how she really transformed the way a whole country thinks about not only cooking, but also eating. So we knew we wanted food to be a big thing. We actually did our filming food sequences was pretty much the last thing we did in putting this film together, because we knew that we wanted to figure out like, how are the different Julia Child dishes gonna be part of our story? Like, we didn't want them just to be like, chapter headings, like some story ends and then you have 3 minutes of amazing food and then you go on to the next story. Like, we needed to like weave it in. So basically we put most of the film together and then had to make the decision about like which Julia recipes are going to be the best to go with which scenes. And that is when our food stylist, Susan Spungen, came in, who's really an expert not only in cooking, not only in making food look beautiful for cameras, but also on Julia's whole body of work specifically. So we kind of went through with her and talked through what food should go with what scene. And then there was a whole separate issue of the actual shooting, which Betsy can explain, because that's a whole, like, each part of this was its whole thing.
Yeah, our very able and innovative producer, Holly Siegel, had a Julia Child kitchen built in a studio in Manhattan, a sort of replica kitchen, but it had removable walls so that our camera woman, Claudia Raschke, who we had worked with on RBG and who shot many of the interviews for this film, could film, over the flames through the, of the stove. And it was pretty accurate down to where the pots and pans were from Julia's kitchen in Cambridge that Paul had designed. And then in addition to the filming that Claudia was doing with Susan Spungen, those are Susan's hands that you see, making the pear tart. We also worked with a cinematographer in Paris, Nanda Bretellard, who really specializes in food photography and uses special cameras to do macro shooting and close-ups, slow-mo. So in fact, we had the dishes prepared both by Susan in New York and then by a cook in Paris. And both Claudia and Nanda were filming these. And then our amazing editor, Carla Gutierrez, integrated the two scenes. So what you see when you see the pear tart being made, there are actually some French pears and some New York pears. So the really close up, juicy stuff dripping down. That's Nanda. Yeah, so that was something we felt we could bring to the film that actually was an advantage that Julia didn't have. Because of course, when Julia was making The French Chef, she was the attraction and she's absolutely mesmerizing. The food, not so much, it's kind of gray and not all that appetizing. So we could bring this really high-end cinematography to bear.
That's so awesome. Just staying on that topic, were you guys able to try any of the recipes, either cooking it yourself or from the people just making it? And what's your guys' favorite Julia Child dish?
Yes, we brought home food from the shoots. There's a lot. It takes actually a lot of. It takes a lot of filming of pear tart to create what looks like one pear tart. So there was a lot of stuff to come home. It was all delicious. And yes, Betsy and I, who actually like cooking and eating going into this project, which was part of the attraction, have been more Julia cooks since making the film. I mean, the salad niçoise, which we think just looks so delicious and luscious and bright and sparkling in our movie, is something that we sort of separately have both put on our home rotations since making the film.
Yeah, and now that it's getting a little colder here in New York, I made the boeuf bourguignon, a couple of weeks, a slightly abbreviated version that Ina Garten does, I will admit, but it's basically pretty true to what Julia's vision of that, and it was so yummy. So yes.
I love that dish. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of the dishes on the menu. Yeah. And one that known that she's been very famous for. So I'm curious because you both have done several films together, RBG, and My Name is Polly Murray. I'd love to know a little more about your filmmaking partnership and how you work together, how you came together, and how that partnership works.
You want to start, Julie?
It's a good example because we have all these different systems, and I could tell you something about, we even have a system of how we answer questions, which was a little bit unclear with the last one. Usually if someone just did a tiny short answer, they might take the next or they might not. So there's a thing. Anyway,
yes.
We started working together on a project called the Makers Project, which was a joint PBS and AOL project, which was really documenting the modern women's movement. So there is certainly a connection between that work, which was now started about 12 years ago, and the films that we've done subsequently.
Yeah, and we didn't know each other when we started working on that, and then Julie has been making independent documentaries. I was teaching at Columbia Journalism School, and then in 2015, as RBG was exploding on the internet as the notorious RBG, we came up with the idea of working on that documentary, and that was really the beginning of our true partnership, because that was a very intense process. And the way we work is that we try to be as transparent and collaborative as possible. We make all the major decisions together. We're always bouncing ideas off each other. But because I think, we have a level of trust and also respect for each other's taste, because we have similar sensibilities. We like to make films that are about important people and important issues, and perhaps do have a message, but that also are fun and entertaining. And we try not to miss an opportunity for a good laugh. And, we think that documentaries can be like narrative films, really engage a viewer. That's sort of our approach. So because we trust each other on that, then we do a fair amount of divide and conquer in terms of preparing for interviews or actually doing the interviews. And, we'll share questions with each other. We generally both try to go if possible, but sometimes that's not possible. And then we use Google Docs relentlessly. I mean, I think they're going to be giving us some kind of a, kickback here for how many
I know
times
they should.
I'm
We're promoting them
mentioning.
because when people want to know how we work together, the answer is not only Google Docs, but their whole suite of
Yes.
products, including something called Jamboard, which is the equivalent, if people have seen the cork boards that filmmakers often have with like colored pieces of paper all over that either post-it notes or colored index cards. Well, there's a digital version of that called Jamboard that allows us all to collaborate on that and like move the little colors around. We love it, and and it's people, you talk about our partnership, but it's kind of beyond that, because of course for large portions of the film we're working very closely with other people, most essentially on the two films RBG and Julia, with the editor Carla Gutierrez, who also shares our desire to make films that are illuminating documentaries, but that also will work as date movies. So it's really often the three of us collaborating, or each of us collaborating with Carla on different scenes and then showing the scene to the other.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we were really fortunately situated when the shutdown happened. We really didn't miss a beat. I mean, we went off to our respective home offices, but because everything was already set up remotely, we were able to just get on Zoom and have meetings and then go off and work separately, then come back together again. And, it was a pretty seamless transition from in office to remote collaboration, and we were able to finish the film in time.
That's so awesome. And like Grace and I, we have a partnership, and we both live on Google Docs for sure. Like we're
Google
typing
Docs,
in there
Google
at the same
Sheets.
time.
Yeah.
I love it. It's definitely helpful.
We have a color. Each one of us has a separate color.
Yes, we highlight
Same.
anything, and all our teams know which is
Which color.
Betsy's green,
Don't
and I'm
touch
purple.
that color. That's mine.
Yeah, it's not even.
And then if
not
we
even
agree,
purple.
then it's yellow.
Once we agree, it
Yellow
turns
is when we agree.
I love it.
I love it. I love what you guys said about making a documentary feel like a narrative. And we see a lot of like up and coming documentary filmmakers just within the festival and everything. Do you guys have any advice for up and coming filmmakers, documentary or narrative, or just kind of what to do to make it such a, good documentary?
Look, there are many different styles of documentary, and I think we don't presume to say that this is the way to do all documentaries, because we really enjoy different kinds of documentaries. But I guess I feel that it's important at a certain point to be able to step outside of yourself, to look at your film. I mean, Julie and I are just going through this with another film that we're working on that we really love, but we're realizing, okay, we got to take a couple of minutes out of this. And then you have to be brutal. You have to be brutal about, okay, I've already made that point, and even though this is really an interesting section, we did that already. It's redundant. And when something is redundant, it's kind of inherently boring a little bit, because the person's saying, oh, didn't they tell me that already? And why are they saying that again? So that's, I think the ability to just step out and look objectively at what it is, and, get, especially for early filmmakers, you need to solicit people whose opinions you, respect, but sometimes that can be a problem too. Don't overdo it.
Don't necessarily listen to them.
Yeah. Don't listen, but
think about it.
But listen to when they say, I don't understand this, or what is going on here. And that's the moment where okay, maybe that's not clear, and maybe I need to help the audience. And, I mean, it's like writing, people revise their writing over and over and over again. And it's the same with making a documentary filmmaker. Don't just fall in love with your first edit.
Right.
Yeah, I think too, especially when you spend so much time researching and, you're so involved in the topic
Yeah.
yourself, you
Right.
kind of forget, who is your audience. And yeah, taking that step back is so important. And I see it. Yeah, we watch a lot of films, obviously, for the festival. And yeah, it can be, they just get lost in that idea. And you really, and Julia, I feel that you really displayed a lot of new information about her, and then also the mixture of all the food and everything in such a beautiful way. So yeah, I just want to thank you both for making an incredible film that I think everyone is going to enjoy. Is there anything that you want people to take away from the film specifically?
This is where it moves away from the message part of what we do and more towards the emotion part of what we do. People sometimes will talk about a movie as being a feel-good movie, as if that's like a bad thing. I think more than anything, we really want people to come away from our film feeling really good. There's a lot to feel good about from the Julia story, and we wanted it to be a really immersive, emotional experience, and we hope people come out like happy and hungry.
It was really pretty wonderful for us to be working on this film in the middle of the shutdown, and we feel great sharing it with people. And I think, now that we're in this next phase, I'm not going to say that everything is over, but we're in a new phase. I think people have come to appreciate the importance of food, and this is a way to kind of celebrate our rediscovery of that, perhaps, and enjoy just a great personality who changed our world.
Well, thank you very much to both of you, and we wish you the best of success with Julia and all your future projects. We can't wait to see what you're up to next. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to talk to you.